Hello and welcome to the sixth conversation with Kids in Cyber. I can't believe there has been six of these already. We have one more next month to finish up the season. But right now I am joined with Natalie Bowl, who is the founder of Tribella, and we are going to be speaking about her social media today. So if you want to introduce and tell us a little bit about yourself, Natalie.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me today. Yes, so I am from originally Canada, and I worked in media for over 20 years in Canada, primarily lifestyle TV and documentary programming. And for the last few years, I've been working on a project called Tribella. And Tribella is a new social media platform that we designed to be a safer and calmer environment, and really looking at the well-being of our community members. To just give you a little bit of a background of how I got from media to building the social media platform. In a lot of my career, we really used social media within our productions. So I was very familiar working on social media campaigns from a marketing perspective, and we really saw the immense power that social media had for the entire media industry over the last 20 years. But in 2018, I gave my daughter her first cell phone. And at first, it started with media at school where they were given iPads. And then, really soon after, the entire class everyone was on cell phones at 12. And the experience went from exploration and excitement to very bad very quickly. And that changed my view of what social media was, because at that time, I identified a lot of the ways that she was being harmed on social media were the same vulnerabilities that we use for marketing. So I could see how, the platforms were allowing for these harms to come through. And my first reaction was to just completely go offline, completely like, let's just throw away our phones. We don't need to be online anymore. I deleted all my social media, and that was that. But over time, I met with more and more parents who had children with very similar experiences to my daughter that didn't make it through. And I felt like, okay, this has been a while, and the harms are only magnifying, and they're not getting better, and more kids are being harmed. So there needs to be a way that we can build these communities safer, especially for the younger users. And that really inspired me for the project of Tribella, really researching. I went through thousands of court documents in the US where you really have access to files of lawsuits on harms that children are experiencing and adults are experiencing, and really looking at, can we correlate these harms with an engineering to mitigate them? And that's where we started building the platform Tribella from the ground up, really looking at these safety by design, which is very complex. There's lots of different moving elements to it, but there's a long-winded story on how we got here.
No, that's really good. That's really interesting because I think parents are going to be thinking, especially with the social media ban coming up in Australia, which everybody's talking about at the moment. And sometimes I see a lot of these videos, especially by Australian teens that will be up against the ban, talking about how you can get round the ban. They're like, well, really, you only need a parent's email address to sign up. And it was this girl that was speaking. She had something like, I don't know, over 100,000 followers. She's obviously monetizing at this point and she's doing well off it. So I think her parents are thinking, oh, we don't want her to come off the platform. So she's like, oh, if you get parents to sign up an email address, you can still use it. And there's a lot of my friends, the parents are like, it's fine, don't worry about it. When the ban comes in, we will create you an account so that you can stay on. So I think there's going to be this great divide of the kids who can stay on, still have access to social media. Then you're going to have the kids whose parents go, nope, that's it, it's banned, you can't go on it. And they're going to find a way to sneak on it. And then the concern there is what happens when they see something that upsets them, mentally affects them, they're not going to speak to anyone because they're going to think, right, okay, well, I shouldn't be on here in the first place. I went against everybody's advice and I went against what they told me to do, and I have done something I shouldn't have. And I feel as if it opens up a whole new door for predators and things online, because they can manipulate children and say, well, if you tell, you're in trouble because you shouldn't be on here. I just
Yeah.
think that the ban is going to cause more harm than good. But it would be amazing if there was something like a social media that was safe, that could protect children from all these dangerous algorithms, and one that gave parents peace of mind. Can you tell us a little bit about the platform and how it looks to achieve that, rather than what we're seeing right now with social media?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you brought up some really good points that I would just like to touch upon before I tell you how we came to the conclusion of the features of Tribella. So when it comes to the bans, I did hundreds of surveys with teens when I was developing Tribella and speaking to them on their social media use. And on the part of Australia, I understand how it's gotten to this point, because there's been called for safety by design mandates over and over again across countries, across the world. And now that I'm in a place of building a tech startup in industry standards, I've been in a
Mm-hmm.
lot of rooms with a lot of companies and a lot of investors, and I can honestly say they don't care about safety. So when it comes to the ban, I understand how we got to this point, because it's gotten to the point where, okay, we can't have more of these harms, so we're going to ban it. But at the end of the day, the young users are the ones being, I would say, almost double victimized in a way, because if you look at what young users just coming onto a community are experiencing, a lot of times in my research, there was two things that they were doing on social media. The first thing was messaging with their friends. So they're 12, they get their first phone, they're just getting social, you're hitting puberty, like there's so much happening in your life, and
Mm-hmm.
you want to connect with your friends. That's the number one reason why. So right now they're using a lot of Snapchat for that. The second reason is to see media and content. So they're looking at influencers, they're looking at sports, they're looking at how-to and DIY videos. And there is
Mm-hmm.
some really amazing content on social media. So the idea to block that off, you're cutting away community, you're cutting access to media that they're watching. And I don't think that that is the way to go. And exactly like you said, they're going to find other ways to circumvent this. They're going to get parents, older people, they're going to lie. They already found out millions of ways to get through these types of bans. But I think it's more of like a wake up call to the industry to go, okay, you're not going to be allowed to get away with this for so much longer. When it comes to Tribella, what we've looked at is what are the major harms that we're seeing and how can we mitigate to reduce these harms? So one of the big harms on social media is bots, fake accounts, anonymous profiles. Those are a big source of harms. You have people faking to be people that they're not. You have this extortion. So a lot of this also is cyber crime. So we've looked at the onboarding, age assurance, as well as live detection and bot detection on the platform to ensure we're not allowing bots and fake accounts, which are part of a lot of levels of harms on a platform. Then we looked at the algorithm, which is a huge part of the issue with children, because, and a lot of all of us on social media, is the algorithm is so addictive. And so the way it works is like a lot of these kids will be on for 4 hours because they've just been zombie scrolling, because the algorithms are so good at feeding them content that they can't look away from. Another part to that with the harms is they will end up being on a feed with things that are inappropriate for them. Self-harming content, violent, sexually explicit content that they didn't necessarily ask for, but if they've engaged in it, they'll get fed more. And in the case of my daughter, she was fed a lot of self-harming content, and it can completely change the well-being of a child when they're introduced to this kind of content. So for Tribella, we've introduced an algorithm that the user completely has autonomy over. So you choose what you want to see, how you want to see it and how it shows up in your feed. And we've developed design techniques where the feed is calmer, so we don't have autoplay. It's not an infinite scroll. And so we've intentionally put these design aspects into the feed, really looking at how can we make the feed less addictive, but engaging
Yeah.
for you to see the content the way you want to see it. And then moderation. So moderation is a huge thing. We're moderating all content that comes on the platform. And I know recently Meta came out with the PG-13 and it did not go very well. But we really have looked at the media standards of what is acceptable for a PG, not PG-13, but PG audience. So parental guidance, but general audience. What is acceptable for that age for explicit content? So we've allowed no violence, no explicit language, no sexual content on the platform. And really looking, this has been a lot of our research, is how do we moderate without censoring so you can still have thriving communities, but that they're not going to swipe and end up like if you see on X or you see on Snapchat or you see on even TikTok and Instagram, you could just be one swipe away from seeing some really horrible, concerning content. And for a child, especially if they've lied about their age, they're going to experience content that they shouldn't be experiencing. So that's some of
So
the things.
I wonder how is it you would moderate the content though, because that's one of the parts that like I think a lot of people will be wondering with with Meta it was being filtered out through AI and detection, and there was also I think I'm not sure if you've seen in the media a while ago some of the Facebook moderation employees were actually going to sue Meta for the distress that it had caused the people that were moderating this content, because they were the ones that were like the first line of defense. They were deleting the videos of, like suicides and all these things and things that just should not be on social media. They were the first line. They were seeing them. They were making sure they weren't making their way onto the platform. If, let's say, in the future, this platform blows up and there's millions of users, how and content is being loaded up like by the second, how would you be able to successfully detect all the ones that are flying under the radar? Because you have things like there was a big thing about kids YouTube. There was loads of content sneaking on there that just was disguised as kids content, but it wasn't. It was Peppa Pig. That became a big thing where it was the Peppa Pig name, it was the Peppa Pig characters, but they were like using knives and guns, and
Yeah.
parents had said they'd looked at it and they were like, "Oh my god, what are you watching?" Like, I'm watching Peppa Pig, and it's like, I don't think that's Peppa Pig. All this content, even the worst, could be disguised as, hey, this is child friendly. What's the moderation going to be on the Tribella platform to make sure that nothing slips through the net?
Well, again, it's always going to be a work in progress, but right now what we've done, which is because what you've brought up is really good points. So, in training our models, we've looked at some of the biggest social media harms. And what we came to the conclusion, especially with this AI models, if you're going to let guns and knives on your platform in some capacity, like, when you look at Meta, you look at YouTube, they allow some violent content. So
Mhm.
when they're scanning for violent content, it's going to be really hard for the AI model to go, okay, well, this gun is allowed, that knife is allowed, this gun is not allowed.
Mhm.
So you're really looking at the context as you're training the models. So we've trained the models that we don't allow guns on the platform at all. We don't allow knives on the platform. So we've trained our models against finding that. So in a Tribella video, you're not going to see a knife battle because you're not, at this point, that's the only way we can keep it secure. As we're training the models, they're understanding context. So they're
Mhm.
understanding everything that's happening in the image in the video. So if it is jujitsu and they're wearing outfits and it's going to see like what's the language that's being described in the video, what are their images in the video, what are they doing, so it's really understanding context. And this is part
Mhm.
of the research and the development that we're doing, and it's ever evolving. As you know, at the beginning, when we were doing our beta, some people were uploading jewelry and they had different rock formations of crystals that didn't make it past our moderation because our moderation had flagged it as possibly a spoof on a methamphetamine advertisement.
Right.
So
Okay.
we've been training the model to understand more and more context. So we've trained it that we rather have a false positive than negative. So we rather have the jewelry not make it on the platform at this early stage. We're a startup and we're just building these models rather than have by accident a methamphetamine ad. So we've moderated quite strictly. I don't think, and I think this comes into the entire principle of Tribella. Coming from media, I feel like we've tried to retrofit adult channels to be safe for children. And what an adult will be able to watch is much different than a 12, 13-year-old. And so you can still have engaging content without these explicit videos in it. And so I think that the bigger networks like Instagram and Facebook would get a lot of backlash if you moderated it really to be safe for a younger user, because they would really inhibit a lot of the stuff that they allow for adults.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. It's true, and it's true what you says. I mean, sometimes the way people put things, you think, "Oh, I never really thought of that," even though it's oh so simple. Like you were saying, we're trying to create content. We're trying to make something that really was designed for adults, safe for children, and it's
Yeah.
never going to really work. Because the content on it is just, and it's so strange because I think when I was having another one of these conversations with kids in cyber, I had said about, you know, they have such different experiences from adults, and I think that is why
Completely.
parents don't see the danger in it. I mean, I can honestly say until I went on restricted mode, that's like a whole other story. But on my TikTok, I never see anything bad. It's
Yeah.
parents Christmas shopping, it's Smith's adverts because I'm a mum and they're the things I look for. I look for Christmas recipes and like different home decor styles. And most parents would be fooled into thinking, TikTok is not that bad. Where is all this content that everyone's talking about? The inappropriate content and the bad content. It's not there. And I think that's
No.
why they think it's fine and everybody's just being dramatic about the, getting hit by a car thing. It's like, what's the chances of really getting hit by a car? It's everybody's just over exaggerating. And it is really bad. I mean, I had been on my TikTok and at one time I seen a video that I didn't like, and I thought, right, okay, I'm going to do what I try and do through the kids in cyber. You see it, you report it, and you move on. So I reported it as like, look, this is inappropriate. And then TikTok had this like list where it was like, do you want us to remove all these things from your content? And it was like violent, sexual stuff. And I was like, oh, this is quite good. Tick, 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 tick. And then all of a sudden I entered like a restricted mode where I didn't have the search bar anymore. It was just literally the videos that I scrolled were locked in. There was no way to go
Yeah.
out it or search. And I was like, what's this? What have I done to my feed? And
Yeah.
it
It's like you're
was
getting
so
punished for
bad.
wanting.
It was so bad. It was like I made a post about it on LinkedIn. There was like a dog jumping off a bridge. There was like just loads of sexual stuff, and I'm thinking like, what have I done to my TikTok? I had to go out of
Yeah.
restricted mode to get my old feedback, and I'm thinking that's crazy. Like we tell kids, be safe and report things, and I did all the things that you would tell someone to do to be safe, and it went really bad. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking this is a nightmare. So how would Tribella? How would it be like a TikTok style, a Facebook? What's the social
It's
element
a
of it? Is it posting and friends?
Yeah, it's a mashup. It's definitely a matchup. So you can connect with your friends. So similar to kind of like an old school Facebook, you add connections, you have a personal page, personal feed, then there's the public feed. The way that we've customized the recommendation system is you can choose what kind of content you want. So you can choose text, you can choose images, you can choose videos, add whichever mix you want or all of them. You can choose to just see your contacts and what they've posted publicly. We've really allowed it to be, you can post private, you can post just for yourself, you can post public. So we really made it easy and intuitive to post to the public feed or not. And then we've customized it based on your interests. So at any moment, you can change what interests you want to put into the algorithm, and the algorithm will automatically update your feed. So in the case of my daughter, who helped me come up with the frameworks of the algorithm, now she's in university, we've looked at, in the case where you have a situation like what you were talking about, where you're seeing content that you don't want to see, you're able to switch off that topic and not see it. So when my daughter was on the self-harming content that kept flooding her TikTok and Instagram, she could block and remove one aspect of it. And I think it's gotten better since then. But then, like you said, that this kind of situation wasn't available for her at that time. But when she would report one content, it would just start coming back into her feed again. And
Mhm.
so another part to that is we are definitely seeing different realities when it comes to social media. My feed is very different than my daughter's feed, than your friend's feed. So this happens a lot where people are like, Instagram's not that bad. I see personal quotes and some really inspirational stuff. Like, what are you talking about? Even
Mhm.
when you say kids are seeing self-harming content, people don't understand what that means. This isn't a passive content. This is a descriptive content where kids are learning. And I don't know how, I don't want to be too graphic on LinkedIn, but they're learning what razors to buy. They're learning how to self-harm, and
Mhm.
they're glorifying suicide in a lot of these videos. And I think that it's so damaging for kids to be watching this type of content and then to not be able to turn it off. So this is where the algorithm that you completely customize comes in, and it's also on a timeline. So we're not feeding aggressive content to keep you on. If your interests are over and you like basketball and there's only a certain amount of basketball, your feed will end. So we really looked at putting the control in the user's hands, that they're able to customize how they experience their feed, which was really important. So that was one of the elements that we've looked at. And then when you also look at the For You feed, is where a lot of kids have run into problems on social media, is being served something because their friend has watched something bad, or they've seen something and they hovered on it a little too long, and their For You feed can become flooded with content that they not necessarily should be watching. I have noticed, I would say that TikTok is getting good at behavioral tracking. So I noticed with my son, he had my phone, he was on the TikTok, which I don't really use, but I have a TikTok on my phone, and my son was using it, and suddenly it got flagged as a younger account. So their behavioral tracking identified that even though he was on my phone, he was a younger user. So that part was really promising. However, he was still being fed content he shouldn't see,
Yeah.
even though it was flagged that he was a minor with their behavioral tracking. So this comes into the other foundation of Tribella, is I believed we needed a platform that was moderated for the youngest community members on the platform, and that we don't have levels of moderation based on ages. Because to try to moderate different ages with different
Yeah.
content with on the platform is also a very challenging thing. So we've just moderated it all. Like, I want to say it's
Mhm.
like the family channel of social media, the way that we've moderated it. And that was
Yeah.
purposely because it's very hard to moderate based on user age.
Yeah. No, that sounds really promising. I mean, it's sort of like the Amazon um, tablet. My daughter has the Amazon, and it's so strict. It has like a games library, and it's just the games that are on there. You can't go onto the internet and look for like new things. She has access to Netflix and Disney. And she will complain from time to time. She's like, "Oh, can I play my dad's computer?" And I'm like, "Why? Why do you need that? You have your own." She's like, "It has better games." And I'm like, "No, it's because she can go into the Play Store and she downloads just the most utter rubbish." I think one day I found her, and we came in. She's only 7. I came into the bedroom and she had took one of our like little iPad things we have at home. She was playing a game and it was called Kick the Buddy. And it was basically this little
Oh,
rag doll. Yeah, and you kick it and you can stab it and it's like getting flung round about the room. And I'm like, "Oh my God, what are you playing?" And she's like, "Oh, it's called Kick the Buddy." And I'm like, "That's not a good game." She's like, "Why? It's funny." And I'm like, "But what?" And I sat her down and I'm like, "What's funny about it?" And she's like, "Because you can do this and you can do that." And I was like, and I had to explain to her about, it doesn't matter if it's on there, or violence is never a good thing to do, even if it's only fun and it's a game. And she doesn't play anything like that anymore, but it just goes to show how, getting on an adult tablet vs what's on a child's is a completely different experience. And we wouldn't pick up our tablet and use it to play games and watch videos on, because it's not for us. So it'd be good to have a social media for children that it's not, adults and teenagers can't complain and say, "Oh, it's for kids." Well, yeah, it is. That's what's on there, and it could be a good foundational stepping stone for children to learn good social media habits, being good digital citizens, um, to then hopefully, when they're ready to be progressed on to when they're older, Facebook and things like that. I don't know if there would be a stepping stone, because if if Tribella was really, really safe, almost like a nursery atmosphere, it was very like, do you know what I mean? Like, if it was really
Yeah.
safe, and then they move into like a bigger school where it's just a huge difference, I'm wondering if there could be a transition there somehow. Like, this is safe, it's really safe, but as you get older, you're going to be exposed to something that's not. I don't know what would
Yeah.
maybe be.
Yeah, well, right now Tribella is set to be all ages, so there's no restrictions that you have to be under a certain age to come onto Tribella. The way it's set up, it's really a personal experience. So right now we're in beta. There's a lot of children in this test phase that you can't even tell they're on the platform, because they're in their own bubbles with their own network testing the app. They're not posting in the public feed, so you don't even notice. So you really can make Tribella like your own personal experience in a way. And because we've moderated and created this space, what I hope and what my goal was to create like this co-viewing community. So when you go into like the middle of the city and you're going into the mall and you're walking around, what are you experience? It's appropriate, when you're going into these, a street with different shops, you're not all of a sudden going to see an X-rated porn shop in the middle of like the family shopping district. So we wanted to create a space which is co-viewing, because in our research, a lot of the kids are like, we don't want to go on a kids app. We don't want to go on a baby app. So we want to create it in a place that is sophisticated, that doesn't feel like a kids app. It feels like a community app. And that they don't have to grow out of the experience, because they can stay in the experience. That the way we've moderated is for the health of the whole community. And what you touched upon is also right. Like, how do you become a good digital citizen? And this also comes into the harm of rage bait and the miscommunication on social media, where the incentive of the algorithms and the environment have incentivized this hate. And so it's become really normalized to say very mean things to people, because it gets more engagement, and
Mhm.
the platforms are actually using bots to encourage this emotionally charged conversations, because they'll get a post more engagement. So we've really lost track of like, how are we showing up for each other, and this is what we hope to also achieve with Tribella, is that when you come onto Tribella, there's a list of core values, and it's really about showing up, community, being kind to each other, also the privacy of each other, and really trying to create a community, like you said, where like we're showing up as digital citizens, and we want to be in a place that's like safer, that respects our well-being, that respects our psychological safety. And that's kind of what we're hoping to encourage with the platform.
That's really good. What is the age range for Tribella? Like, what's the minimum age you have to be able to sign up to the platform?
Well, right now, we're working on, it's 13 plus right now, but we do have some parental guidance test cases of younger users. So in our research, the youngest age on social media right now is generally starting at 9. And in the UK alone, there's over 60% of 9 to 12-year-olds on social media. So when I spoke with lawyers and people in the industry that are really working on the cases of children being harmed, they were like, if you can make it safer for even the 9-year-olds that are sneaking on, that are on already, that would be really good. So we're still working on that framework. So, under parental guidance and parent consent, that they can come on under a certain way that it is moderated. So the parent would consent to which features they can opt in and out of, that they don't post on the public feed, that, there are some restrictions within that we're working on, but that is in the future. We're not allowing that just yet, but we are testing it. We're also working with the ICO on privacy and how we're collecting data on the platform with minimal collection of data, as well as, because this is another level of harm, is how your data is being used. And also with our AI, our in-house models, we're training them to be very transparent. So in the future, we'll be able to give transparent on how we're training these moderation models, why they've come to the conclusion that this video could not be uploaded that you tried to post, or it could. So these types of things we're working on as well. So to answer your question, right now it's 13 plus, but we are working on the frameworks to what would it be like to be safe for the younger users that are already using social media.
Yeah.
So and this is where the parents are really coming to me saying, we feel ashamed, but our kids are on YouTube Shorts, not the kids one on our phone, or our kids are on Instagram, they're already on TikTok, and we want them in a safer space. So really looking at the early adopter of kids, they're getting their phone and they need a safe place that they can connect with their friends, or at that point they're watching media, and that they're watching media in a safe space.
Yeah, I think it would be really good if I think it's I think it's really amazing that there's so many new initiatives out there at the minute, and so many people getting really fed up at what's going on in this space and thinking I'm going to do something. You have the smartphone movement where they're like, look, ban the smartphones in schools, we don't need them. Which
Yeah,
I am totally against banning anything, but I'm totally for that because I just feel
I
like that is
agree.
not needed. Like I spend a lot of time with my daughter going through digital literacy, being safe online. I do not want her going to school and someone with a phone saying, "Hey, Papa, look at this," and upsetting her. And one thing I constantly talk about with my daughter is in mental health, and I always explain to her that what you put into your head, you cannot take out. I tell her that all the time. Like
Exactly.
you cannot remove something you've seen. It's there for life. Be very protective and be very careful of your mind. I tell her this constantly. And she's always very cautious of things she hears, and she'll maybe tell me things that's going on at school, and we'll sit and we'll speak about it. But I think so. For that point of view, totally against the smartphones at school. It's a place of learning. It's not a place to be like, "Hey, let me show you some video on Snapchat." So I think that should definitely go. There is some companies at the minute, I think, working on phones for younger children. So it's like a
Yeah,
bridge between, it is a smartphone, but it's limited. I suppose you could think the phone version of the Amazon tablet. It's
yeah,
limited in the apps. You can't download whatever you want, which I think is a great thing. And
yes.
then obviously we've been building kids in cyber where we're saying, look, there's no real digital literacy in place for primary schools. It's very much, we'll teach them that when they get to the academy or secondary school. And it's like, well, like you said, they're being exposed, they're on things at such a young age. Why not teach them from primary one when they're eager to learn and happy to listen, rather than saying to lots of teenagers, okay, I want to teach you about digital safety. They're a bit like, oh, here we go. And I
Yeah,
think it's great if we can all come together, and I think it could potentially really make a difference in the future. I mean, you know yourself, it's not something that's going to be done overnight, but it would be great to see a world in the future where it's like, no, you're not having smartphones at school. Yes, you are having digital literacy lessons. It's mandatory, but it's the world that you live in. It's getting built upon all these different technologies. You need to really learn and understand them, not just be a passive user of it. And then you have obviously social media for children that could maybe be put on these smartphones that is no, you can't have Facebook, you can't have Snapchat, but you can have something like Tribella where it is safe, it's been tested. And I think we could make a lot of difference to children's lives.
yeah, absolutely. And I think you brought up really great points, because I totally agree with the ban in cell phones in schools. And there's been a lot of really bad experiences of kids bringing cell phones to school and showing and telling of horrific videos around, in the kids' schoolyards. So I totally agree. It's a distraction. And I also 100% agree with delaying phones as long as possible in a child's life. And I think that Tribella fits into the next layer of that. It's like, delay your phones, don't have phones in school, but when they are home and they are going to go on a phone, having a space that they can see their favorite athlete, that they can watch some of their favorite DIY videos and not be one swipe away from a self-harming content or something else that is really not good for them to see. And I completely agree. And I tell this to children all the time and adults that you can't unsee what you have seen. And subconsciously, this really affects you. And you're seeing this in children that have been exposed to pornography and other harmful content, either by accident or by a kid showing them through these social media channels that they can't unsee. And I feel like it's aligned with child abuse, what some kids are experiencing on these social media platforms.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think there has to be a change in the way that algorithms work as well. I don't understand why they need to be so reactive. I mean, I think an algorithm should work based on over time. If you are consistently watching the same content and seeking it out, then obviously not harmful content, but wait until the so maybe like I'll watch one video of someone doing a shopping haul and I think, oh, that's quite interesting, but I'm not that interested in it. I was just interested in maybe that particular video, and then I swipe on. It just shouldn't instantly start to, flood your feed all the time, shopping videos, shopping videos. Like, okay, I watched it one time. Like, let me at least show you that I am interested in this. I think it's the same with videos that are harmful. If you watch one video that's harmful, watching once might be enough to scare a child to not stop again. So they may flick, 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 and if they come against another video, they may go, oh no, I don't want that. Because I've seen my daughter do this. She looks at images like icons of games and things. Or if I let her look at my phone for a little bit, if she's looking at videos, I'll see her. She goes through and then she'll hover for a second with finger. And if at the beginning of the video doesn't look appropriate, she'll go, no. And she'll go, next, next, next. Because my kids went through a phase where they loved watching Halloween videos, like the spirit Halloween and the people going to the spirit shops and decorating. But there was videos in there from like Universal Horror Nights, which is
Yeah.
obviously too extreme. And she would be able to recognise the difference between all the videos. So she seen one when she was younger, like a Universal one, and it scared her. So now she's like, if she sees the video, she goes past it really quickly. And I
Yeah.
think if algorithms held off on showing the content that somebody hovered on, so she sees it, she watches it, she didn't like it, and then she goes past it pretty quickly, the algorithm would learn, okay, she watched it one time, but she actually doesn't like this content. But it doesn't seem to work that way. It seems to be you watch once or twice and you get it all the time.
Yeah. Well, I think it depends on the platform. I think when it comes to something like TikTok, it is able to really train for what you've hovered on. So it will update quite quickly if you start
Mhm.
passing content continually. Unfortunately, a lot of times with teens and adults as well, is you hover on content that which is engaging and interesting that might not necessarily be healthy for you. So they're really trained right now on engagement and engagement at all
Mhm.
costs because that's the metric that they track. And so when you're building out an algorithm for a recommendation system and you've built it on engagement, it's going to mathematically pick what subjects you are engaging with and
Mhm.
holding you there as long as possible. So in the formation of Tribella's recommendation and algorithm, we looked at, okay, rather than us continually picking for you, that you can have control over that and changing it at any time. But some people love it, so we've built in a search feature that's launching where people can search and kind of explore content as well. Because sometimes, you might like something that's not part of your interest. So you need to explore beyond your interests. So there's that as well. So it's a constant balance, even with our algorithm, we're going, okay, do we have friends weighted more than public content? We have public content, so you can play around with it a lot on how the recommendation of content is for people, but it completely will change your experience. And I think the biggest part of it is just not having the harmful content in the recommendation system in the first place is
Yeah.
one layer of defense. And then other people might find certain content that they don't want to see. They can just filter it out in real time. It automatically updates your feed.
So is there going to be an age limit for Tribella? Because I know we spoke about, join 13, potentially, depending on your research, maybe younger, maybe 9. But is there going to be like up to the age of 18,
No,
or is that just it's for anybody, but kids can
it's for
join from
anybody.
potentially the age of 9?
Yeah, so we've looked at it similar to how social media is right now, where it's all ages. But what we've done is gone, okay, so if we have an all ages platform like an Instagram, how do we make it safer for the youngest user and put that into the engineering right from the beginning? So that's why I like to say it's like a co-viewing experience, like a family channel. But what we have done is that's why we don't have the kids under 13 right now, is we're building a lot of frameworks and protections within that for when they're coming on, that they're able to be in a protected environment. But I would say, not to bring it to a whole nother conversation because I know we're wrapping up, but there is a level of children creating content on social media, 13, 16-year-olds building businesses online. It's really a huge part of social media that it's become like the first job for Gen Z and Gen Alpha. So we're seeing them really looking at it as a way for them to be entrepreneurs. And I think that's another thing that the platform is looking at, is like, how do you keep younger users that are creating interesting content, whether for fun or whether for their first job, as well as a level within the platform as well.
Yeah, I think I've done right and everything is covered. I think Tribella will be really successful. It would be really good as well for I'd mentioned earlier on, as a SEND parent. My son is a whole different ball game, and there is a lot of vulnerable kids out there, and I think the way he is now, potentially being a teenager, he's probably going to be a vulnerable teenager. So it is good to have a platform that, you are old enough to go onto TikTok, Facebook, but this is probably a safer option for him, and maybe one that kids feel safer in as they go up, and they maybe don't feel the need to move over to these other platforms because they think, I like this, I'm used to it, it's predictable, it's safe, it's good for vulnerable children as well. I think it could do really well, and one that I would definitely want my children using, instead of just don't go on a platform, but now you're old enough, here's social media and here's a phone, which is scary. So it is good to have something there that's like, you're not banned from social media, you're not banned from having a phone, but here's a phone with things on it that is social media. And if it's not presented to children as being restrictive and being safe, I think that tends to make children feel a little more defiant. I think they feel, oh, it's
Exactly.
babyish. It's not. When you start to tell them, oh, it's age appropriate and it's restrictive, all these terms for children, I think, yeah, babies, they want to be mature, and they
Exactly.
want to feel like they're part of something that's. So I think if worded correctly and presented to them in a way like that, I think they'll think, oh, this is a good social media, and parents will be really happy about it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Is that we can't lead with this is a safe option for you, and we have to lead with more like this is a really fun community for you to be a part of, and look at all these great things that you can watch and you can connect with your friends. And the messaging has to be more around the community and not around the safety when you're talking to teenagers, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Natalie, and I wish you every success with Tribella. It sounds like it's going to be really exciting for you, and I look forward to when it's out of beta and it's in the App Store. You can download
Yeah,
it, have a
thank
look.
you so much for having me. I really
Thank you very
appreciate it.
much.
Yeah,
Thanks. Bye.
bye.